Okay, let me just start by just walking you through. I've put some cards on your chairs. I don't know whether you noticed that or not. Okay, 2 little cards. Good place to start. Okay, I'm going to point those out because I know I'll forget at the end to tell you about them. And the truth of the matter is I have to rush out of here when we're done. And so that's how you get hold of me. And also it's notes from what we're going to talk about. I'm at Eddie Obeng. So if you need to ask me questions afterwards, please do. What I'd like to do is start by just sort of telling you a little story, and then I'll build on that, because the title of my session is something like Counterintuitive Thinking for a Digitally Disrupted World. It seems like a strange thing to say, but I'll tell you a story. It's just a straight story, and then we'll work from there. Apparently, the town of Scottsdale in Arizona is growing really fast, and it's growing into the desert. So what's happened is all the rattlesnakes who used to live there have gone up into the mountains. So when people go hiking in the mountains at the weekends, the rattlesnakes sort of attack them, basically, okay, and bite them. So of course this is a problem. So the town elders decided that what they should do is they should provide a sort of bounty. So every dead rattlesnake you bring back, you get some money. So people would organize picnics in order to go up into the mountains and shoot these rattlesnakes. You got it? Okay, great. So the rattlesnakes were pouring in. So now you expect that the mountains are going to be safe and you can walk there with your kids. What do you think happened? No, the exact opposite. The mountains are now more dangerous because they're populated by really silent rattlesnakes. What I'm trying to explain to you here is that the way we think may not take us to where we want to get to. And I want to try and build that story quite systematically for you and make it really easy for you to be able to come with me. So I want to just start with what I always do, which is a little bit of a shock, which is helping you to understand that the game we're playing is no longer the same. By the way, I spend my life as an avatar, and so some of the stuff I'm doing is a bit strange because I actually live on the internet. This is me. So let me just walk you through what I wanted to share. It's a really simple idea. You may have noticed the world's been changing. The best way I try and describe it is if we take a line and we make this bit here now and make this the past and we stick between the two about 20 years, really easy question, just say yes or no. Has the pace of change increased? Yes. Great. Is it more complex? Is it more interactive? Is it more interdependent? Yes. Great. Okay, so this is now, that's the past. How are those 2 points joined together? Straight line? Curved line? Exponentially. Why? Because the pace is accelerating. There are more people on the planet. You get network effects. That's not interesting. What's interesting is how fast we're learning and changing over the same period. I can remember when we used to do things like budgets. We could plan a whole year in advance. You with me? So once upon a time, we could learn faster and the world was changing. What's happened to our ability to learn and change over that period? I'll do it together. We'll do it together. I'll go horizontal. You shout up and down if you want me to go up or down. 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 Okay. The thing is those two lines cross over. And that, for me, is where it all falls over. Because what we've done is we've built an understanding of how the world should work. Going around shooting rattlesnakes will get rid of them. But the world actually works completely differently. And one of the things which we've done is we've decided that because we're now connected, we can use things like social media to connect everyone and actually get more communication. I want us to do something to try to demonstrate that the challenge for us is not about communicating out, but something else altogether. So for that, I need you to pair up with somebody. So find somebody you've paired up with. Pair. Make sure you've got somebody you've paired up with. Don't be shy, okay? Great. And then what we're going to do is we're going to stand up. Okay? And then I'm going to seek a volunteer. Okay? And this is what we're going to do. Really difficult task. Come. Okay, really difficult task. We're going to count to 3. And the way we're going to do is I'm going to say 1. You're going to say 2, I'm going to say 3, then you're going to say 1, then I'm going to say 2. It's really easy. So in your pair, just go as fast as you can. So if you want to go back. Oh, 1, 2, 3. Oh, she's gone somewhere else. You can join him. He's looking shy. Oh, that's pathetic. Stop. Embarrassing. Wait. I'll make it easier for you. Obviously, 3 numbers is too hard for you. So forget the first number. What we're going to go is going to go click 2, 3. You're going to click 2, 3, click 2, 3, click. Go, faster. Only 2 numbers to remember. Look. Much easier. Forget all the numbers. Just remember 3. So now we go click, then you clap your hands, then you say 3. Click, clap, 3. Go. High speed. Show me how it's done. Oh, pathetic. Forget the numbers. It's too difficult for you. No numbers. So now we go click, then clap, then slap your thigh, okay? Go, click, clap, slap your thigh. Go for it, go for it. Rubbish! Okay, look, let's go back to 1, 2, 3. Just go back to 1, 2, 3 and see what's happened. Just go back to 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Brilliant! Fabulous! Applause! Well done! Yes, okay, you can sit down now. And I have a question. How come you couldn't count to 3 at the start? What happened? Did you learn how to count to 3? No, of course not. The reason you couldn't count to 3 at the beginning was not because you weren't broadcasting information. What was happening was you knew you had to count to 3. So you go 1, and the other person would go 2. But now you're not listening because you're co-focusing on your own message. So you couldn't hear what they said. So you go, did that happen to you? And then I made you laugh and relax. And then you started to listen as well as broadcast. Do you understand why social media doesn't bring us closer together? You got it? So one of the things which we have to realize is that many of the things we take for granted, actually they're broken or they're not working the way they should. The communication from you must be received. It must be listened to. Okay. Can I keep breaking the world around you a little bit? So all those tweets you're sending, if you get into the rhythm of listening to what people are interested in, it makes it easier for them then to listen to you. Second place I want to take us, which is a bit strange, is into understanding a little bit about how the world around us has been reconfigured. You see, I live virtually. I mean, I'm sure you've read my bio or you probably Googled me, but I live virtually. This is one of my classrooms. This is where I live. I live here as an avatar. I wander around. I teach in here. So that's basically my life. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this quite simply because coming here yesterday and struggling through the fog was intriguing for me. I wake up, my typical days, I'll wake up and run a workshop with avatars maybe from Australia. And then I'll go home and have breakfast. And then I'll maybe have a meeting face to face. My world is very strange. And I'm starting to lose touch with everybody else's world because I live in a town which is rather strange. It's a town which has these people who we call time travelers living in it. Time travelers are amazing people. They look just like us, but every morning they wake up in their houses where they have good internet connection and ability to do Facebook and FaceTime and everything else, and they put on a clothing and they travel for 30 minutes to this place called an office. Yeah, amazing. But the place they left was the 21st century. When they arrive at the office, it's the 20th century. Everything's locked down, nothing works, you know. They talk about, well, one day we'll use the cloud, but they can't actually access it. Are you with me? Okay, so you imagine they've traveled here to have a good time, to drink some beer, do something like that. No. What do? They spend their time sending each other these things called emails. They're like 20th century letters. Have you heard about them? I email you, you reply to me, you blind CC her, she bumps into him, he emails me. Have you seen these things before? And then we do that backwards and forwards. Finally, we realize how many of us are involved in the conversation. So we say, let's have a meeting to discuss this. Bad news. We've all traveled to different offices. We cannot meet. So we use another amazing 20th century invention called an audio conference call. Have you come across this? Amazing device. Basically, your phone, the same number, and it goes beep, who's there? It's me, etc. And then what happens for the next hour is that one person talks and 12 people continue to do their emails. Amazing miracle. So, and then at the end of the day, of course, they travel back. But they're so bored now that they buy these devices. Some of them are even called iPhones. And and when they buy these devices, they swoosh and swipe and consume content. You with me? And the thing is, especially if they're oldies, they are so taken by the amazing power of these devices that these devices take over their minds. I work with lots of large tech companies, and one of my large tech companies, who I won't mention by name, but they do the best search engines in the world. One of the things which they do is they do a number of conferences trying to help people in different industries to understand what's going on. And one of the last conferences I did, one of the key elements was looking at how people's behavior was in terms of buying. Anyone got any idea how often people sort of go to their device and switch it on and start something off? How many times do you think you do that a day, on average? 200, correct. Have you divided that into a day to see how frequent it is? One day of 8 to 10 hours divided by 200. How frequently are you going onto your machine? Every 3 minutes. Okay. How long do you think it takes to get into that flow, that depth of thinking, which people like Conrad will talk about or demonstrate, which allow you to make a breakthrough, allow you to make a decision? How long do you think that takes to get into the zone? How many? 20 minutes. So what you're telling me is you don't do any thinking. It's a serious point. You see, what's happened is we've got lost in the process. I'll give you an example of what's going on. I did a workshop once, and I'll just flip this over because it's quite funny. I was sitting in this thing, and they'd invited me to come and listen to a talk about childhood obesity. And this is sort of my handwritten notes. And I was listening to all these experts, and everyone was saying, childhood obesity is because we don't know how to cook. And somebody else would say, because people don't know where vegetables come from. And then somebody else would say, all these experts, professor emeritus, etc., and global people. Great. And I was sitting there, I was just listening and writing it all down. When I get into complex situations, I don't worry about correlation. I don't worry about incidence. Why? Because there's so much data out there. You remember that curve you just drew of the world? I just look for causality. What's likely to make that other thing happen? And that's what this diagram is. It's a causality map. You with me? So I was writing down what was going on. And I realized things like human beings only consume so many calories a day. Net result of that is that if they get more calories, they get fat. But fat is like old-fashioned piggy bank. Basically, you can put the coins in, but you can't get them out. You with me? And at the same time as that's happened, most companies are trying to get growth. So growth means they have to sell you more. If you're selling a turnip, 20p, you with me? You can't sell very much. So you have to sell more turnips, increase the size, or higher value turnips. So you take all the turnip juice out of it, turn it into turnip juice drink for the people who are going to sit on the... And then you sell that to people instead. You with me? So what happens in most situations is most of the companies who make food are providing us with turnips, but they've taken all the goodness out. But there are 3 amazing things we've done in the past 2 centuries. We've learned how to make sugar. Sugar is brilliant. Why? Why is sugar brilliant? Because I think there's a lovely talk, TED talk about, it's not that we like sugar, it's that basically sugar is sweet because it's good for us. You with me? It's the wrong way around. You get the good sensation. We've done salt as well. Salt does the same thing. So that's great. And fat, of course, tells you you're going to live through the winter. So we've got 3 industries, dairy, sugar, and fat, which make it really cheap. So they add those cheap ingredients back in. So you eat those, but now there's too much salt in it. So you drink some coffee or some water or some fizzy drink. Are you with me? But this fizzy drink gives you a sugar rush. So you're so pleased because you had no energy because there's no nutrition in the food. So therefore you go around that cycle. Can you see it happening? Now stop and think about your every 200 connections a day. And just think about it in the same terms. There is no idea that you suddenly stop thinking and all you're doing is responding to a device. You with me? At the same time, everyone's trying to push you their adverts and push you their content. Can you see where I'm going? We're digitally obese. You got it? Okay. Can I frighten you with some more things? Okay. Where I'd like to take you next, if it's okay, is to look a little bit at how you actually work with other people in your real life. When we did that 1, 2, 3 thing, I was trying to get you into the mood of actually starting to connect with other people. There is a big challenge we have. As we bring more technology to bear, the solutions get harder and harder. Let me go back and try and explain. I spend most of my life working with corporates. That's basically what I do, okay? So my job is to take big companies and to try and help them to change. So that's what I do. I mean, if you Google me, you'll see that I spent ages doing that. I'm very, very good at it, he says. Okay. But one of the things which is crucial is most organizations are set up by hierarchies. Have you come across this concept? So at here are where all the people who make all the decisions are. You got it? Okay. How fast can you transfer information to another person? Right now I'm speaking to you, I probably do 200 words per minute because I talk really fast. You can probably read at 200 words per minute. Yeah? You text at about 50. I'm just warning you. It means that when you're texting, you think you're busy, but you're only a quarter as productive as you could be. But moving on. Okay. So what happens is, this group here, there's an upper limit to how fast we can feed them stuff. You got it? And it's apparently about between 1 and 10 megabits per second. Who here has a Wi-Fi connection which is less than 10 megabits per second? Okay, not many people. Do you understand what I'm trying to explain? The information flowing around the company, the information coming into the company is far more than these guys can ever absorb and have a discussion and come to a conclusion with. They're flying blind. Do you understand? So how do you avoid flying blind? You have to get cleverer. You see, what happens is, because we're getting all this data, we get deluged because we don't understand what to ask for. I once did a conference for information professionals. I went on stage and I said to them, I shouldn't be here. I'm a bit of a fraud. I don't know what information is. And the group was silent. I said, go on, tell me what information is. Silence. I said, if I said to you, 42, is that information? put your hand up. And some of the hands went up, but some were down. I said, what's missing? They said, 42 what? I said, 42 years. Is that information? Hands which were up went down, others went up. So I've proved they don't know what information is either. Okay? I said, what's missing? He said, 42 years what? I said, 42 years old. Is that information? And somebody at the back shouted, what's 42 years old? Who is 42 years old? I said, yes, if you'd asked me, who is 42 years old? Yeah? Or how old are you, Eddie? I could have replied 42 years old. In other words, question plus data equals information. Bad news. I'm not 42 years old, so this data is the wrong data. But what makes it even more amusing is to understand where the questions come from. Where do questions come from? When you have small amounts of data, you can easily formulate the questions. The thing is that the people at the top of the hierarchy have to formulate more of those questions, but they don't do that. They just collect the data. And because you're collecting data, you end up looking for incidents or patterns. So everybody ends up following a fashion. And so you see these trends come through, and we're all now into big data. My definition of big data is it's just like teenage sex. I nicked this from somebody else, by the way. Basically, everyone's talking about it, everyone thinks everyone else is doing it, but nobody's actually getting any of it. You with me? It's that problem. So what happens is these patterns come through, and the thought processes are not behind it. And we have to regain our ability to think. So, if you understand this part, you'll also understand that people who actually work with big data sets, part of what they do is they formulate ways of trying to describe the question visually and in other ways, which then enables them to look at the data sets in a different way, which then enables them to pull out the information. But as a general rule, most organizations don't get this. And even if they do, they spend their time talking about last year. They look backwards, they report, they take data from the past and try and use it. What is it we learned right at the beginning on these curves? Tomorrow and today don't look the same because the pace is accelerating. Have you any idea how much of our time we're wasting? So I'm going to sort of stop at that point and just maybe take one or two questions. Then I'm going to invite you to an event and maybe show you a short video about other people working virtually with me. And then we can close. Any questions? There's two questions there, high speed, yeah? Oh, sorry. Just shout, just shout.
Okay, so just go back to your obese thing. So everyone knows, right, that to not be obese,
yeah,
you've got to eat fruit and veg.
Correct.
And exercise, right?
Yes.
So what is the fruit and veg and exercise in digital equipment?
Okay, so my tricks, okay, I leave my devices at my terminus points. So when I get to the office, I pick up my iPhone. When I go home, I leave it behind, I go home, I have a different machine. In transit, I think. At home, I've managed to remove, that's probably the best way. So I've cut out television. I don't watch normal live television. I don't have a license. If I want television, I go to grab it. And then the other things I do, I have a timer on my desk, and the timer is usually set for about 5 minutes or 7 minutes. So if I go off surfing somewhere else, and I get carried away by all those notifications, buzz, it brings me back, and I go, what the hell was I looking for in the first place? So I have all these coping devices, which I use as my vegetables. Yes, please, there's another hand up there. Just shout, just shout, just shout. We have no time. The world's moving fast.
The forest full of snakes.
Yes.
It's more dangerous not because of silent snakes, but because of more gun-toting Americans.
It's a combination of guns and rattlesnakes. Brilliant. Thank you.
How do we combat this technology thing with young people?
How do we? I think part of what we do with younger people is two things. Okay, this sounds really terrible, but one of my friends has a really young daughter, about 3 years old, and he was telling me about how wonderful she was on an iPad. And I went, what, you let a 3-year-old loose on an iPad? He said, yeah, she's really good. She swishes and swipes and you can play her games. I go, look, when we're developing pharmaceuticals, we have controversial things we do, like we test them on rats. If the rats don't die, we move to monkeys. Are you with me? Finally, when we know it's safe and it's not going to drive anyone nuts, we release it to the public. When it comes to tech, we don't do that. How bizarre. Nobody knows what the impact on his 3-year-old child's brain is going to be 30, 40, 50 years from now. We have no idea. And yet we release it into the wild. So I think it's a more complex question to answer, but I think because we're all following fashion, we're not thinking in advance. Sorry about that. Go. Yeah.
How do we get the older generation at the same level as the young generation that's coming up.
Yeah. Okay, it's about oldies. I only work with oldies. Okay, so just worth knowing. So part of the reason I built the world I live in, which is called Cube, is because I work with oldies. So I had to design something which would make oldies feel comfortable. So, so I work with oldies, and what you find with oldies is that the best way to engage them is actually to do stuff which they recognize. So the way I've built my environment is basically so that people recognize the bits. You know, when we started, I had a little whiteboard. Why do I have a whiteboard? I have a whiteboard because all oldies, and I call anybody who's older than Google, which is 17 years old, an oldie, will recognize a whiteboard. They know what a sticky note looks like. They know what a presentation screen looks like. So I've taken the language they recognize and put it into their world for them. The other thing I do, of course, is because I'm an oldie myself, you may have noticed I bleached my hair in order to pass for one. It's easy for me to say that if I can do it, then there's no reason that you can't do it as well. So that also makes a huge impression on them. So if I had to leave you with a couple of thoughts, my thoughts will be this. Every activity you're doing, check that you're actually answering the questions which you need to. You're not just getting deluged by data and following through fashion. Every single thing you're doing, have a think about the people around you and how you're connecting with them. Remember the 1, 2, 3 piece. Everything which you're doing, try to make sure that you've looked at the bigger picture, looked at the world after midnight, watch my TED Talk, and have a great Thinking Digital Manchester 2015. Thank you. Let's go that way. Thank you.